Get set, action!
Hi guys, it's Kristie. I own A Strong Soul Wellness, and this is
Paige. I'm a writer and astrologer at Healing Spaces.
and you're watching
Real talk. Good morning, guys. So we have obviously switched things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
What kind of coffee do you have?
it is vanilla nut.
I love it. It's so good.
Thrive Market, man. It's the jam. That, you guys need a code? Hit me up. Not for influencer code, but I can share my link and
Yeah.
get you some percentage off your first order.
It smells so good.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing whenever I show up at home and I have a Thrive box on my doorstep with groceries in it. So,
Sorry.
despite that little detour, we are here this morning because once again, we want to share with you a vulnerable conversation for women, by women, and for men, if you want to learn a little bit too. And yeah, just get real and raw about these things that we hide underneath the surface that we may not have safe people to talk about. And so we're here to join with you in that conversation. So welcome. Happy to have you.
So glad you're here.
Thanks for coming back. if you've come back, thanks for joining. If this is your first time, we've got all kinds of exciting energy floating through the air today. So
I promise it's not always a hot mess. That's a lie. It's probably.
it's kind of always, but we're enjoying. I think we enjoy the mess so much more now than we ever did. Which,
it's just I don't waste energy on trying not to be a mess.
Yeah.
So with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all the things, follow.
Yes, follow, do the stuff, reach out. We've gotten so much in-person feedback about these episodes, which is wonderful. But we would love to hear from you guys, in the comments or in our DMs about what you like, what you would like to hear more about. Because we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, which is great, but also we want to be able to include conversations that are meaningful for you guys too.
Yeah.
So,
Be of service.
yes. Thank you.
We totally coordinate this morning, but I think it's hilarious because we did not. I said, "What are you wearing?" Leggings and a t-shirt, and this is what we came up with.
Yeah, so we matched very well.
I like it. I like
Very
it.
well. Me too. I mean, black is my color.
Yeah,
Love it.
I would prefer to wear black over anything, or maroon, but I just know what I look better in.
We are literally all over the place
I'm
today.
sorry.
No, I love it.
Okay, yes, today we kind of want to, this is a huge topic, and I feel like we say that every time.
Every time.
But we want to talk about parenting and motherhood and the journey
that it is.
Yes.
The journey that it is.
And I don't want to necessarily say the struggles because I feel like that maybe sounds negative, but it's just a lot. There's a lot to and women, especially moms, we tend to suffer in silence because we feel bad for the way that we feel. We feel guilty for the way that we feel. That motherhood is messy and sometimes super stressful, and sometimes you feel exhausted and then you feel like crap because you feel that way. And so we kind of want to just open up that conversation that you don't have to feel bad for how you feel or whatever you're going through.
Yeah, and when you do feel bad, you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
That shame spiral, that guilt, it's a very real thing. We completely understand it because we feel it ourselves all the time. And we're just trying to navigate our way in the most graceful way possible. And so, I think that addressing that conversation and those struggles and, the good parts and the bad, the shadow and the light of it is so important because every single day there is something new that comes up. And it's an intense experience.
It is.
I mean, it's an intense experience. And I say all the time to people who have children to people who want to have children that nothing will trigger your inner child wounds like having a child yourself.
Yes.
So, like, when I've been in conversation with people who want to have kids and haven't had kids yet, like, I tell them, I encourage them, like, start doing the inner child work now, because it will make it so much easier once you have kids, because you don't realize how much those buttons are pushed and how much, like, projecting you will do onto your child until you're in that situation. And for me, I didn't have that realization until Macy was like 8 or 9 years old. Like, she was later, like, it was very much later after her, you know, formidable years that I realized how much I was projecting my wounds, my insecurities onto her and into the way I parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think something that I have been kind of sitting with is, and just kind of giving myself grace. I have 3 kids and they are each 5 years apart. So unfortunately, fortunately, my youngest is getting the best version of me compared to what the older girls got. Because I've come so far in my healing journey, I'm able to look at certain situations and just react and talk through things differently with her that I wish I would have been able to do with the older girls. And for a while, that gives me goosebumps, because there's like guilt with that, but really, it's part of the journey. It's part of the healing. And when you have, you know, an older kid and you have a younger one, sometimes the reality is they do get the better version of you. And that's just part of the journey. And I think if you're feeling that and you feel guilty like I have, it's okay. I mean, like, you learn from your mistakes, and it's never too late to teach your kids differently and to just be a model. Like, my oldest is 17. At this point, it's just trying desperately to be the model.
Yeah.
And just to show, like, love and grace, and just to be a model.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Macy and Presley are 7 years apart. And so with that, Macy got a very different version of me back then. And honestly, like, I think it's super important to be humble enough to admit that to your kids. Like, I have a lot of conversations with Macy that I specifically tell her, your sister is getting a different version of me than what you got, because of this journey that I've gone on, because of the healing that I've done, the work that I've done, the meditation that I do, the journaling. All of those things allow me to show up and be a better version for you guys. And I didn't have those tools when she was little.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that I became a mom at such a young age. Like, I've been very honest with her about the fact that I was still a kid trying to figure out how to raise a kid. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't really know what I'm doing. And it's still like a freaking
trial and error.
Yeah. Like, it's a cluster all the time. But I think being honest with our kids.
Yeah.
Being willing to apologize when we do screw up is so important, because we are going to react, but we can always repair. Like, that is the most important thing. Like, we might react poorly, but we always have the option to repair. And when our kids see us leading with humility and being able to show up and give them that respect of an apology, like, hey, didn't handle that great, super sorry, that opens up the door for them to realize, like, oh, it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's also okay to apologize for them.
Yeah, I love that. I will say personally, I've always struggled apologizing. That's just always been something that I've struggled with. But along those lines of, you know, apologizing to your kids in those situations, I also think it's important to, like, express your emotions to your kids.
Yeah.
So with Emily, so I have a blended family. So when I say 17-year-old, she's my bonus child. So I was a part of her life when she was 5. The middle daughter, Emily, she's 12. Ooh. So she's like my first baby. So when I was raising her, I did not show like, I didn't show my emotions if I was hurt or sad. Everything would come out in anger, which I've kind of talked about. So I kind of like would hold in my emotions. And just in the last couple years have I been able to learn how to express my emotions differently and express to them, hey, like that kind of hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And it has been, and especially like my middle daughter, I guess my kids are older, so I have to be careful. You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, did you talk about me? They don't like when I like post on Facebook or anything. Like, that's why I post more of like Annie, because she's like, put that on Facebook. The other ones are like, do not. But she's not the best at expressing her emotions. And that is truly because she has mirrored, she grew up with me not knowing how to express my emotions. Yeah. I also was 19. 6 weeks after she was born, her dad was killed in a car accident, my high school sweetheart. So new mom, grief, no idea what I was doing. Yeah. So now I'm leaning into and just learning how to express my emotions to them because that's what I like want her to do. And we have found like different avenues of how to do that, like through writing and things. But like it is okay. I don't think we need to put like burdens on our children, but it is also okay to be like, hey, you know, that kind of hurt my feelings. Yeah. And they need to hear that. Yeah. I think that's okay. You know, it's I used to tiptoe because I was like, I don't want to put burdens on them. But you know what? If they like hurt your feelings, I think it's good to express that so that they can see that in turn they can be like, hey, Mom, that hurt my feelings. Yeah. And I think that builds a really beautiful relationship. Yeah. And I think there's a difference in saying, like, when you say, like, something like that, or when you use that tone, or, you know, whatever it is, when you can address that and say, this hurt my feelings, or, like, I feel hurt by the way that you said this, or however it comes about, is very different than, I'm angry because of you. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a difference between expressing your feelings and placing blame. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it's so hard, because sometimes in reactivity, like when we're reactive, we can jump to placing blame and like shame and guilt versus coming from a grounded place. And I think that's why it's so important for us as parents to be doing the work. Yeah. It's so important for us to be coming from a self-regulated place so that we can express that genuinely and calmly versus reactively. I know from my experience, my Mercury, my planet of communication is in a fire sign. So like when I get hurt, like, or when something comes at me and I'm raring to come back, it's like straight fire. Like it's like a fireball in my throat, and I am just like, I am so sorry. You're an asshole. That just reminded me of, like, you know, when you're a little kid and somebody's phone goes off in church and you're just like, I apologize. No, totally fine. Hilarious. Thank you for the laughter. But you're fire. No, yeah, like, I mean, I used to be so reactive and just like fire, like fire back. And I very much have to work at that often so that I'm not that way. But Macy also experiencing that, and then her too, having her like planet of communication in a fire sign is like coming back at me. Yeah. And so she's learned that from mirroring me, but also has that natural inclination. We've talked about, how does it feel in your body when you're upset? And she's like, it feels like my throat is on fire and it needs to come out. And I'm like, I get it. I understand it. So it's not that I try really hard not to punish her when it happens. I give her the opportunity to repair it. Because I know how hard it is for her to not react in that way. And so, like I said, coming back to, it's so important for us to do the work, for us to be coming from a regulated place, because I set the pace
in her and I's conversations. If I'm going to go up, if I'm going to get reactive, if I'm going to start firing up, she's going to join me. And so it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of effort, but the more calm that I can stay, the more permission that gives her to stay calm.
Yeah.
And even if she does start to fire up, or even if she does start to like want to react in that strong, powerful way, she really comes around and softens a lot quicker, and we get a lot further in the conversation if I can regulate myself. It doesn't always happen.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It doesn't always happen. But I think the most important piece of that comes back to, which I've said this to you, I've said this so many times, I believe, wholeheartedly, our kids will not do as we say. Mm-hmm. They will do as we do. And because of that, that's where it always comes back to our self-regulation, our intention, and the work that we're doing in our lives.
And that repair mode, you can't repair anything when you're both in that fire.
Yeah.
It has to be in kind of more of the calm. And I just want to point out, you saying how we have to the self-regulating. That's why Paige and I are doing what we do with women, the work that we're doing. That's why I'm a health coach. That's why you're getting into astrology and reading birth charts, because it really, truly does make a massive difference in your life. When we think of self-care and doing these things for ourselves, we think, oh, it's time away from our kids, or it's selfish, or this and that. And it literally creates a ripple effect that will benefit your kids. And that is, I just want to point out, that's why we're so passionate about the work that we do with women, because I truly believe it is life-changing.
I believe it's generationally changing.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry,
and that's I believe that. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't fully believe that. And so, but also, like you said, it doesn't always happen, but it does make a difference. I don't always say to hey, that kind of hurt my feelings. Instead, what I do, I avoid, I lock up. And when I lock up and when I'm quiet, the whole room is icy. It's not like nobody knows. Everybody knows. But it makes everybody walk on eggshells. Oh, they kind of know something ticked mom off, but they don't exactly know because she's just quiet. She's avoiding. She's steaming. I literally steam coming from my ears. That silence. Because for me, it just when my feelings get hurt, my voice is taken from me. For some reason, it just I can't express it. I think maybe there's a fear of, because of my fire, being too aggressive, but it literally just feels like somebody stole my voice box.
Well, and I feel too, generationally, the way that parenting has shifted, it was a very different time when we grew up. It was very different. And I think that we have to address the shifts that are happening within that, because there's beautiful things that we can learn from past generations, but there's also things that we can learn to do differently.
Absolutely.
Always. Just like our kids will learn things from us that are really good, but then they'll also learn things I gotta do that differently because that didn't work,
Yes, absolutely.
I think that is rather than it us constantly taking things personally, of they're doing things differently because we were wrong and we were bad. It's no, there are beautiful things that come from past generations. There will be beautiful things that come from us, our generation of parents. But we also have to be willing to realize that there's not, you can't do everything perfect. And so there's going to be things that they're going to learn from, and they're going to be okay, we got to shift this. We got to do this differently. I think that's great. I think that's growth. I think that's evolution. I think that's how we make the world a better place.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because before I really started on my healing journey, and one of the reasons I did was because of my kids, but I thought, I thought I had to do all the right things and be the perfect parent. And when something would press that button that I wasn't, when something would show up that would prove to me that I wasn't, because it's not possible, I would literally go into a spiral, depressed anxiety, wanting to control everything because I was like, I want to be like the best parent possible. I want to be like perfect. You know, and I would get kind of defensive too. Like, well, I've done all these X, Y, Z. And so when that would be put in my face of, wow, I'm not perfect, I would get extremely defensive and just like a tornado effect happening. But now going through my healing journey as I have, I mean, again, it's not always perfect, but it's, I want my kids to learn from me, to do things their way, to do things differently. Hopefully they take some really important things from me, but I also want them to be like, my mom did it this way. I'm probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that has taken me a long time to get to that point because truly, I don't know if it was becoming a mother so young or just, everything that happened. I felt like this pressure to be, to be like the best mom. I didn't want people around here to be like, I knew she wouldn't turn out right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just was all this like pressure that I had to be all these things and be this like amazing mom. And there's no perfect mom.
No.
And it's okay.
Yeah. I definitely resonate with that because becoming a mother so young, I felt like the minute I had Macy, I think because of, again, like small town, you kind of feel like, especially when you're well known, is like you're under a microscope.
Yeah.
But then also being so young, and then in comparison to other people who have kids around our children's age, we are young.
Yeah.
And so, experiencing that and then going into situations where you're looked at as like, oh, you're still a child.
Yeah.
Oh, you just, for me, it triggered this wound of having something to prove. And so I was constantly, I always have called it my redemption tour. It was like, I felt like I was on a redemption tour of like, okay, she got pregnant out of wedlock. She got pregnant so young.
18.
All of these things. And so it was like, because I felt so much shame, because shame is a tricky bitch, let me tell you.
Yeah, no, just what you're saying. It's like, that's exactly what I was experiencing.
Yeah, in different ways. Like, obviously, I have my story. You have your story. Macy and Macy's dad and I, like, have we have age gaps in our age. And, when we got together, like, there was just all kinds of different factors that played into it that made it more talked about. But when those things happen, when that shame roots itself inside of you and you don't have the verbiage to address it, you also don't know how to process it.
Yeah.
And so then it projects out, and it projected out for us, again, those inner child wounds, plus on top of the wounds that we created in our lives, or that created themselves in our lives as adults, then would project out onto our kids as like, your behavior, how you look is a reflection of how I look. Well, we've both learned from the book, A New Earth. This is like the one key, Eckhart Tolle is beautiful, beautiful writer, but it is like, it was a hard book to get through, but I think
this is a challenge.
The key that I took from it, and I don't know about you, but was that our children are not a reflection of us. Our children are a reflection of them. I am a reflection of me, not a reflection of my parents, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And so when you can realize that, and you can understand that I am an individual, my experience is my experience, my child's experience is their experience, they're responsible and a reflection of themselves in the same way that I am. But it was that notion of like, oh, she is a reflection of how worthy I am. She is a reflection of how good I am at this job. Not true. Absolutely 100% not true. We are each individuals having our own experience, and there are going to be things and do things, or things that are going to happen that we just have no control over.
Yeah, absolutely. And separating that, because there was a time where it was like, I didn't know where I ended and my kids began.
Yeah.
It was like, it was all one and the same. And so, I would try to control their actions, and I didn't want them to make mistakes. like now I'm like, you have to make mistakes in order to grow. You have to make mistakes to learn lessons. Now, you have to learn the lesson. It's not about repeating that mistake. It's not about always saying sorry. If you're going to say sorry, you need to like correct what it is. Yeah. But like, it was just that control of action because I thought it reflected, you know, me as a parent, that I was doing something wrong. And the only thing I was doing wrong was not allowing them to be their own individual human. Yeah. And it kind of, this goes like what I was saying to you earlier, you know, my husband and I were just having this conversation of parenting and kids and, you know, all the things. Our 10-year wedding anniversary is coming up June 1st. So we were just, I know, that's kind of crazy. Anyway, that's wild, but that's a whole other conversation. So I was saying to him, like, I just had this realization that my husband gets the worst version of me. I get the worst version of him. We get the worst version of our kids. But in the same way, our kids get the worst version of us. And that's just the reality. When you are at home, the people in your home, they get the worst version of you. And so knowing that and allowing grace for everybody to sometimes you just gotta be like, you know what? I'm having a bad day. Yeah. And it's okay. But it was just kind of this moment where I was like, honestly, I was like, wow, I'm a little genius. Light bulb moment. But truly, it, you know, you do. And that's where like that unconditional love kind of has to kick in because, yeah, when your kid is having a moment, sometimes there is a level of, you know, obviously like respect and stuff. But sometimes it's like, I'm just getting the worst version of them. Yeah. Is your foot hurting? I knew you were going to say that. I'm fine. So, crickets. Crickets. No, Mom, it's not. You are going to the doctor. But yeah, no, I think that that's so true. Yeah. I mean, in my experience, so, you know, I co-parent. Both of my daughters have different fathers, and so I'm in a constant state of co-parenting. Mm-hmm. And so, because, you know, I'm not with either of them. And so in that, like, it takes a lot of work and conversation for us to maintain those relationships and then also be able to talk about when we, like, individually might get the worst version of our kids. Absolutely. Because we have a very beautiful family dynamic. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it takes a lot of communication and conversation about, like, okay, like, how can we show up, or what do these kids need from us in this space and in this time, because we're the people that they feel the safest with. Mm-hmm. So they're like, if they're going to let down their defenses and just be like, you know, be off or be upset or show these emotions, like, we're the people that they're going to do it with. Same for us. Yeah. But, you know, in my parenting, you know, situation, it's a little bit different. It requires a lot of very conscious conversation so that we're not projecting on each other, because we don't, you know, we don't blame. You know, we're very good. I'm very blessed with awesome fathers for my children. And, you know, in our situation, like, we have to address it a little bit differently, but it's also like, okay, like, hey, I've had to do the work and be able to be honest enough that, like, I'm just having a day. So I'm sorry if I sound, you know, like short or distracted or anything like that. Or I'm really struggling, you know, with Presley because of this, or with Macy because of this. And I would appreciate it if you could maybe, like, have a conversation. Yeah. So, like, my dynamic looks a little bit different, and it also requires that honest communication of, like, hey, not in a great spot today. You know, I could use some support. Or one of the girls is not in a great spot today. I could use some support. Yeah. And so it's just, like, being able to have that awareness around every situation being different. And
really being able to show up for our kids and give them grace when they need it. Macy, like, she had a day yesterday, and whereas you were talking about earlier how you go into avoidance, I am very hyper vigilant and more of an anxious attachment. So when I am feeling a certain way or something happens where I get my feelings hurt, I'm like a volcano of words. Like, I'm like, I want to talk things to death. And that is not healthy, because there comes a time where it's like, okay, we need to let this go. We need to move on.
Yeah.
And so for me in that opposition, I have to get to a certain point where it's like, okay, you don't have to talk this to death. You can give them some space. You can take some space. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like that anxiousness of like
an unsettled
feeling. And so, yeah, I have had to really practice like taking a deep breath, taking a step away. And so yesterday, Macy, I could tell there was just something going on. And so I asked her a few times, was like, I can't help you if you don't talk to me, tried to tiptoe into that. But then I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I love you. I love your big feelings. And if you want to talk about it, I'm here. And then I just kind of went off and did my thing. And even because like when Macy's in one of those spaces, she'll go, I call it her like angsty artist cave. And she's like drawing or sketching or reading or whatever it is that she's doing. And if she gets mad, she has like physical outbursts. So like if she messes up on a sketch, she's like ripping the paper and throwing it down. I used to react to that because it was like, again, that control, trying to like put her in a box, like don't have those big feelings. And now it's just like, I'm able to separate myself from it and just let her fly.
Yeah.
And eventually I did this last night as she was having, like I said, she was going kind of into her little like angsty artist mode. I let her get all of her, she drew some very beautiful pictures from it.
How an artist works.
Yeah, like she came out with some really beautiful artwork. And as I was like, hey, when you get a minute, her chore is to put the dishes away. Can you put the dishes away before the night's over? She's putting the dishes away. She didn't even argue about it. And then she looks at me and she goes, I'm really sorry for being grouchy earlier. And it was like,
did you cry?
I wanted to like throw a parade, but I was like, okay, I'm not gonna make a big deal. It was like, I really appreciate that. I have grouchy moments too.
Yeah.
Kissed her on the forehead and we moved through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, that was kind of like a long story, a long rant, but I think it's just like so important to realize like when we can have the awareness around how our kids also need to process, how our kids also have bad days, how we can honor their feelings, and sometimes they just need to be left alone.
Yeah, and I think that also used to freak me out. It's like knowing that they're having a bad day or going through something, like you can just tell.
Yeah.
Right? When your child, like as a mom, not anything against dads, but truly as a mom, I can feel it. Emotionally, there's something in me an intuition that I can feel when something is just not right. And before, I would like want to drag it out to the point that it would make me angry.
Yeah.
That it's like, why can't you tell me? You should feel the same. You know what I mean? It was like, it would kind of come to an anger, which would just make it, that's not a safe space. And so it was me projecting onto them that I'd done something wrong because they couldn't talk to me. And so now it's just like allowing them to process that when you create a safe space for them, they are going to come to you when they're ready. I mean, yes, continue asking questions because it is like just a scary world. You know, you have to continue being aware, but sometimes you just have to allow them to process in a safe way without control and without projecting your own insecurities. And I still have it. It's my insecurity. Like I can feel it, like something's wrong. I want to fix it. I'm a mom. I'm supposed to fix it. And we just can't always fix everything, but we can be kind of that beacon for them, that anchor of, that they can always come to. Like, I just envision when my girls are adults that's who they come to.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to mom's for a glass of wine or going to mom's for some tea, some coffee, and we're going to talk through some stuff. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah.
My vision.
Yeah. No, I agree. I ask Macy regularly, and I even ask Presley, being 3, like I ask her too, where do you feel the safest? Mm-hmm. And it's not even just about physical safety, it's about emotional safety. Mm-hmm. And as long as, you know, I feel like I at least make that list, you know, because I'm like, you don't have to say me. Like, you're free to, you know, be completely honest. And so I feel like that is something that I want them to have awareness around, because you know, as kids, like, we didn't have these conversations because it wasn't, like, mental health was just not something that we talked about in the 90s. No. And, you know, it's just, it wasn't
mental health was viewed as there was something wrong with you.
Yeah.
If you had to discuss mental health, or if mental health was brought up, it was, what's wrong? Something's wrong with you. You know what I mean?
And I think now I think that we definitely have come a really long way, thankfully. Mm-hmm. And so I think addressing that, like learning emotional safety and giving that to our kids, understanding that, you know, we can be that place for them is a really beautiful thing, and offering that gift to them, and, you know, letting them know, like, because I tell Macy, even if it's something that you don't feel comfortable talking about with me, like, you have beautiful people in your life that you can talk about. If it's something that you don't feel comfortable talking about with me or with your dad, or, you know, with Mitchell, or, you know, there's Aunt Kiki, there's Aunt T, like, there's all of these other beautiful supports and with, like, support in your life. You know, if it's something you feel more comfortable talking to grandma about, whatever it is, like, putting those things out there that, like, I would rather you process this and talk about it than not talk about it at all.
Absolutely.
Even if it means I'm not the person you come to. But I hope that we build a strong enough foundation that you do feel safe coming to me. And then also having to, like, keep myself in check of not taking it personally if I'm not that choice.
Yeah.
Because there's going to come a time where I won't be. And that's okay. It's not because I'm doing something wrong. It's just because, like, she needs the ability to grow and take in perspective from many different people in her life. And the same with Presley. Like I said, I feel like I'm talking more about Macy, but just because she's older.
Yeah.
Presley is 3 and living in her beautiful little musical world.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, because I'm in the teenage, I have preteen to, you know, 18, a preteen, 2 teenagers, whatever, you know, Emily's going to be 13 this year. And yeah, you definitely, in those years, those are really, really hard years, because you aren't always the person that they're going to go to. More often than not, you're not going to be the person. And that has been a massive blow to my ego. But I recognize that, and I just try to, like, allow that space. But it's like, there has still been moments where it's like, what else could I possibly do to make you feel comfortable with me? And it's just, that's not it. They have to, again, process. They have to go to, as long as you have allowed them space to find people they're comfortable with, and kind of teach them a little bit about emotional security. And, you know, my youngest, Annie, she has, like, a beautiful intuition that she reminds me a lot of me. She's just not comfortable with everybody.
Yeah.
She's not, you know, in a crowd of people. She's got to take a step back and take a moment to kind of assess the situation. But once you'll see her connect deeply with one person, and it's somebody that I'm like, I can feel like, yeah, she is safe with that. You know what I mean? And so it's also trusting that your kid is going to go to somebody who will keep emotional space for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, Macy and Annie are similar in that way. Like, they're very intuitive, and which Presley is very intuitive as well, but she, you know, is definitely more outgoing and, like, can, like, it's like she can flutter around like a little butterfly and, you know, make friends really quickly and open up really quickly. Whereas Macy is, like, her safety is very much in her home space and like with her people, like she holds that very close and dear, and I think it's because she feels everything so deeply. And yeah, I think it's really, this is bringing in, like going into astrology, this is why astrology has become so impactful in my life, is because when you look at someone's birth chart and you see how unique their soul is, you see how unique that they are, how they communicate, how they love, things that they may have to grow through, things that may naturally, you know, bless their lives. It's like this intricate map. And, you know, for me and like our belief, it's like this intricate map that comes from God to allow guidance through this life. And when I can look at that for my kids and, you know, specifically know or understand, have some inclination to how I can mother them in the way that benefits them individually, it's just, it's such a beautiful thing. Macy's more intense. She packs more of a punch. She's got more of that fire. Presley can stand her own too, but in a very different way. And she is more, you know, like she's more surfacely emotional, whereas Macy feels everything so, so deeply. Presley, you know, it's like, if I raise my voice a little bit, she's in instant tears. Macy's ready to like fight somebody. So
so when I had Emily, my daughter is a little older than Macy by what, a year and a half, 2
a year and a half, yeah.
And so we always said, especially early on, where it was like they were like switched. You know what I mean? Like Macy, like she just reminds me of me in that way, and Emily, you know, she's more outgoing and more of just a natural born leader. And so it's just like hearing you talk about Macy, it's like, yeah, I totally understand.
Totally get it.
Totally get that. Yeah, like I just feel everything very deeply, and so anyway, I just thought of that. We haven't like talked about that in a long time.
Oh, yeah,
our kids like got switched.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it is so funny too, because then when I started, like a little astrology side note, but when I started looking at her girls' birth charts, Emily and I have the same moon. So emotionally and internally, we are very similar.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny because it's like there's so many things about her that she's like, I think she's your kid. I don't know how this happened. And it's like, no, like emotionally in our internal world is very similar. And
you were my guinea pig of how to parent her.
Yeah, we have said that too. It's like our friendship has like set us up very well for like parenting our children, because there's a lot of like kindred spirit energy there, which I think is really beautiful. But yeah, it is parenting, and that's where like I feel like I want to say too that anything we say in episodes that regard parenting, I feel like we set a very good intention for not judging anybody for their experience.
Yeah.
Parenting is such a sensitive subject because there is a lot of feelings of shame and guilt and reflection, and those things are really, really hard. So we open up these conversations because we feel those things too, but like everybody is on their own journey, and however you're doing it, you know, however, I listened to it in a podcast one time. It said, if you're asking the question of whether or not you're a good parent, then you're on the right path.
Yeah.
That was from Glennon Doyle's podcast.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's true. And I'm glad because there's been a couple instances where somebody has like made a comment about Real Talk and liking it. And a comment was made where they said, you know, I just wish I would have been a mom like you and Paige, or I wish I was like that kind of mom like you and Paige. And it's like, no. Like what we're expressing here, this is like
highest version.
Yes. I was like, this is like you're getting the best version.
You're getting the best version. We save all the other shit for everybody else.
Like me having that conversation with Rudy about kids get the worst version of us. It's because they literally had just gotten the worst version of me because I reacted to something. So this is just us. We have a gift of processing our learning experience and delivering it into a message. That's so, like, we are not perfect. We're not doing these things 100% of the time. We're doing them part of the time. We're trying to do them as often as we can. It just doesn't happen. And so don't ever compare yourself to any other person. Don't ever compare yourself as a woman to another woman. Don't ever compare your motherhood to another mother, because we all have a different story. We all have a different background. We're all struggling with our own shame cycle. And so it's just really important to not like look at us as like
don't put us on any form of a pedestal. Like sit us down on the floor.
Yes. We just, I think part of our gift is just being able to translate some of these things that we've learned and delivering them into a message, and just, I can put it online. That's the only thing. It's not, this is not something we're experts at.
Yeah, and we are not professionals, okay?
Professionals of life.
Professionals of life. But I do want to say too, in my belief and in my perspective, our children, they chose us. They chose us for a reason, to become our sons and our daughters, and to be our souls to guide through this life. And so remember that. Your child chose you to be their parent, to love them, to nurture them, and to guide them through this life. And so your unique gifts, your heart, your love is the love that they need. And it's up to us to figure out how to offer them safety and how to offer that love to them in a way that they feel it. And they feel it in a true and genuine way, in an unconditional way. And so I think it's so beautiful for us to remember that. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted because there's a spider on.
Shut up!
I'm sorry.
I thought you were gonna cry.
No, I was like on the verge of tears with it also. I couldn't keep it together.
Burn it down. Oh my God. Blooper.
Now I am crying. Okay, it's gone. I got it.
Get it?
I got it.
I have the sudden urge to change my clothes.
Okay, for anyone who didn't quite get that, Kristie has a very intense fear of spiders.
Sitting by the death wall. You know how you guys were just like holding me on a pedestal?
Okay, so I think
I am a grown woman. I am okay.
You are safe. You
are
are safe. It's okay. It's okay. She's sweating. Now she does really have a fever.
I told you.
But anyways, as I was saying, in that very serious, beautiful moment, our children, they chose us. And so do the work, give yourself grace, give yourself love. Sorry, we're off the rails. But yeah, and like I said, if you ever have anything that you want to talk about, we are here. We are open. If you have a massive fear of spiders, she's your girl. She obviously hasn't overcome it yet.
I have a traumatic experience, a wounded child experience.
Talking about inner child wounds, physical representation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the story. Or I won't, because it's like I literally feel like I need to change my clothes.
Oh, I'm dying. Okay, this just made my day. But yeah, so thank you for joining us for this lovely, beautiful, hilarious conversation. Yeah.
I survived.
You survived. She's ready to crawl out of her skin. We appreciate you so much. Please like, comment, subscribe, send us a message. Let us know what you think, what questions you have. We are here for you, and parenting is not an easy job. So if you are tackling it, make sure you give yourself some love along the way.
Absolutely. And follow me at A Strong Soul Wellness if you're looking for health coach, lifestyle, all things health and fitness. Follow Paige at Our Healing Spaces if you're looking for astrology, birth chart reading, all the self-care and love things.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Emotional support, baby. We need it. We need it. All right. We love you guys, and we will see you soon.